Cronus, the very first gods ever to exist, were called the primordial deities. Two of the most important ones were Gaia, who represented the earth itself, and Uranus, who represented the sky above. Together, they had 12 powerful children known as the Titans. The youngest of them was Cronus, often shown holding a sickle, the same tool farmers use to cut grain at harvest time. But Gaia and Uranus also had other children, giants with 100 hands and cyclopes with a single eye. Uranus couldn't stand them, so he locked them away in Tartarus, a dark pit deep beneath the earth used as a prison for the wicked. This broke Gaia's heart, and she turned to her 12 Titan children for help. She crafted a stone sickle and asked them to stand up against their father. Every single one of them refused, except Cronus, and castrated him. He threw the sickle and what he cut into the sea, and from that spot the Greek island of Corfu eventually formed, an island that still has a sickle-like curved shape to this day. With Uranus removed from power, Cronus took the throne alongside his older sister Rhea. The era he ruled over was called the Golden Age, a peaceful time when people had no need for laws, rulers, or even hard labor. But there was a warning hanging over him. Gaia and Uranus had foretold that just as Cronus overthrew his own father, one of his sons would one day overthrow him. This terrified him. So every time Rhea gave birth, Cronus simply swallowed the newborn whole. He did this 5 times in a row. But Rhea had had enough. When her 6th child was born, she hid the baby and handed Cronus a stone wrapped in cloth instead. He swallowed it without a second thought. That hidden child was Zeus. Zeus, the god of thunder and sky, and the king of all gods, was raised in secret. Once he was grown, he used a special potion given to him by Gaia to make Cronus vomit everything back up. First the stone, then his 5 swallowed siblings: Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Hestia, and Demeter. After freeing them, Zeus also released the 100-handed giants and the Cyclopes from Tartarus. As a thank you, the Cyclopes crafted Zeus his legendary thunderbolts, Poseidon his trident, and Hades a helmet that made him invisible. A massive war followed, called the Titanomachy. Zeus and his siblings fought from Mount Olympus, while Cronus and the Titans fought from Mount Othrys. After 10 long years, the Olympians won, and most of the Titans were thrown into Tartarus. Zeus went on to marry his sister Hera and had children with her, including Ares and Hephaestus. He was, however, notorious for his affairs with other goddesses, which produced Athena, Hermes, Dionysus, Apollo, and Artemis. Hera is the goddess of marriage, women, and family. As the wife and sister of Zeus, she was the queen of the gods. She was known as one of the most jealous and vengeful of all the deities. She relentlessly punished any woman who got involved with her husband and any children born from those relationships. When she found out that a woman named Leto was carrying Zeus's twins, Apollo and Artemis, she ordered all the spirits of nature not to allow Leto to give birth anywhere on Earth. It was only thanks to Poseidon, who felt sorry for Leto, that she was guided to a small floating island where she could finally deliver her children safely. Hera also targeted Hercules, another of Zeus's illegitimate sons. She sent 2 giant serpents to kill him in his crib, but the baby Hercules grabbed one in each hand and strangled them both. Years later, Hera drove Hercules to madness, causing him to kill his own wife and children, the tragedy that eventually set him on his famous 12 labors. Poseidon is the god of the sea, and also ruled over earthquakes, storms, and horses. He was a powerful and fearsome god who demanded respect even in cities where he wasn't the main deity. One day, a king named Minos asked Poseidon for a sign from the gods to prove he deserved to rule the island of Crete. Poseidon sent a magnificent white bull up from the sea, with the agreement that Minos would sacrifice it back to him afterward. The bull was so impressive that Minos was declared king on the spot, but he loved the animal too much to kill it, so he sacrificed a regular bull instead, thinking Poseidon wouldn't notice. Poseidon noticed. As punishment, he made Minos' own wife fall in love with the bull. The result of that cursed union was the Minotaur, a terrifying creature, half man and half bull, that survived by eating human flesh. Hephaestus is the god of fire, blacksmiths, and craftsmen. He was born with a disability, and his own mother, Hera, threw him off Mount Olympus because of it. He fell into the ocean, far below. Despite this rejection, Hephaestus became the greatest craftsman in existence. He forged all the weapons used by the gods and made the armor of famous heroes like Achilles and Hercules. He also built Pandora and the box she carried, which once opened, released every misfortune into the world. He eventually found a way back to Olympus, but he hadn't forgotten what Hera did to him. As revenge, he built her a beautiful golden throne and sent it as a gift. The moment she sat down, invisible chains locked around her, and she couldn't get up. The gods begged Hephaestus to come back and free her. He simply said, "I have no mother," and refused. The only way to get him to return was to offer him something he truly wanted, marriage to Aphrodite, the most beautiful goddess of all. He agreed, and Hera was finally freed. Aphrodite is the goddess of love, beauty, and desire. She came into being from the sea foam that formed around what Cronus had thrown into the ocean after castrating Uranus. She was extraordinarily generous to those who honored her, but she punished those who disrespected her just as strongly. Despite being married to Hephaestus, Aphrodite carried on an affair with Ares, the god of war. Eventually, Hephaestus found out. Being the cleverest craftsman alive, he quietly set a trap, an invisible, unbreakable net positioned right over the bed. When Ares and Aphrodite lay down together, the net sprang and trapped them both. Hephaestus then dragged them up to Mount Olympus for all the other gods to see. The gods laughed openly at the two of them. It was only after Poseidon stepped in and personally guaranteed things would be made right that Hephaestus agreed to release them. Ares. Ares is the god of war and courage. He represents the raw physical side of battle, the violence, the bloodshed, and the chaos of the front lines. Unlike his sister Athena, who represented military strategy and the intelligent planning of war, Ares was pure aggression. He doesn't have many grand mythological stories of his own, but he appears constantly in the background of others, mostly through his love affairs and the many children he fathered. Apollo. Apollo is one of the most multifaceted gods in all of Greek mythology. He governed archery, music, poetry, healing, disease, truth, prophecy, and the sun itself. He was the son of Zeus and Leto, and Hera tried every method she could think of to stop his birth, and failed. He was regarded as the most physically beautiful of all the gods. His most important role, perhaps, was as the deity of prophecy. People from across the ancient world traveled to his famous oracle at Delphi to ask about the future, and his answers, though often cryptic, were treated as absolute truth. He was also deeply connected to medicine. He had the power to cure people of terrible sickness, but he could just as easily send plagues raining down with his arrows when angered. Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, wild animals, nature, and childbirth. She is Apollo's twin sister and one of three great virgin goddesses, along with Athena and Hestia. She valued her independence and purity fiercely. One afternoon, a young hunter named Actaeon stumbled upon Artemis bathing in a forest stream. The moment she saw him, she transformed him into a deer on the spot. He ran, but his own hunting dogs, who no longer recognized their master, chased him down and tore him apart. Artemis was one of the most widely worshipped goddesses across all of ancient Greece. Dionysus. Dionysus is the god of wine, celebration, and theater. Like several others, he was yet another illegitimate child of Zeus. Enormous festivals were held in his name, full of drinking, dancing, and all kinds of revelry. Hermes. Hermes is the messenger of the gods and the patron of travelers, merchants, and thieves. He wore winged sandals that let him move instantly between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. He also served as a guide for souls on their way to the underworld. Like Dionysus, he was an illegitimate son of Zeus. He was known as the divine trickster, always up to something clever, constantly pulling pranks on the other gods and making off with things that weren't his. He always carried a golden staff as a symbol of his authority and was usually pictured with a winged helmet on his head. He rescued Dionysus from danger on more than one occasion. Demeter is the goddess of the harvest and agriculture. Through her brother Zeus, she became the mother of Persephone, a goddess connected to fertility and growth. One day, Hades, god of the dead, emerged from the ground and abducted Persephone, dragging her down into the underworld with him. Demeter searched the entire world for her daughter, and, when she couldn't find her, fell into deep grief. As a result, she stopped doing her job. Crops died, fields went barren, and people across the earth began to starve. Zeus had no choice but to step in. He ordered Hades to release Persephone. However, while in the underworld, Persephone had eaten pomegranate seeds, and anyone who eats food from the underworld cannot fully leave. So a compromise was made. Persephone would spend part of the year with her mother and part of the year with Hades. This is the explanation the ancient Greeks gave for the seasons. When Persephone is gone, Demeter mourns and nothing grows. That is winter. Hades. Hades is the god of the dead and ruler of the underworld, where all souls go after death. Unlike many of the other gods, he was not depicted as evil or cruel, simply firm. He kept order in his realm. Souls were not allowed to leave, and anyone who tried to take them would face his full wrath. He rarely left the underworld himself and showed little interest in what was happening in the world above. To enter the underworld, a soul first had to cross the river Styx. The ferryman, Charon, would only transport a soul if he was paid. For this reason, when a Greek person died, their family would place coins on their eyes or in their mouth before burial. Anyone who died without money to pay Charon was doomed to wander the riverbank for eternity. Once across the river, souls were met by Cerberus, a three-headed dog who guarded the gates and made sure nobody slipped back out. After passing him, each soul stood before three judges who decided its fate. There were three possible destinations. Elysium was essentially paradise, reserved for heroes, demigods, and those who lived especially virtuous lives. The Asphodel Meadows was the middle ground, a neutral and colorless place for ordinary souls who were neither particularly good nor bad. And Tartarus was the deepest, darkest punishment, where the Titans were imprisoned and where the worst criminals suffered for eternity with no end in sight. Hestia. Hestia is the goddess of the hearth and the home. The hearth was the fire kept burning at the center of a house for warmth and cooking, the heart of family life. She is the third of the great virgin goddesses alongside Athena and Artemis. Unlike most of the other Olympians, Hestia has very few myths attached to her name. She was a quiet, steady presence, more symbol than story. All right, Chatter Clue members, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below, because the conversation never ends here. See you soon.